everyone. Thank you very much for coming to this show, P4PETalks. We are glad to have you in our midst, and we would like to apologize for the little wait. So P4P actually has been an institute and a force to reckon with. We have been a template for thought leaders to provide insights, and we have been developing professionals, individuals, and teams using expert insight that are appropriate for personal development, business growth, and career advancement. We are powered by P4P Institute. Who are we actually, and what value do we offer to the society at large? We provide cutting-edge solutions. We bring professional and business discipline, standards, and rigor to the HR function. As a Nigerian company, we provide a global outlook, and we give insights into how we can tackle common talent problems. We deliver superior people, clients, and shareholder values. And who are our brands? SME Academy. Let's read. We encourage readers, we bring readers together by compressing books, and we give you the opportunity to be able to read the book handy. POD is our professionals on demand, where we have placement services. LDI, Smart Startup, HR Outlook is a platform or a framework for where we have conferences every year for contemporary issues in HR. My pro services, J100, DMA, and Provasti. Can you all hear me, please?
Yes.
Okay. Can you see me? Can you see my slide?
P4PETalks.
You can see your slide.
Powerful. Appreciate that. So we have Provasti at the same time, which is our e-learning platform. We have a lot of programs there, and it's designed for people who want to become thought leader and specialists in different divisions. We have Juniorpreneur, we have HR1 Recruiter, which are ATS, where you can actually come to advertise your jobs. And very soon, it's going to be one of the biggest ATS you'd ever see in Nigeria. WRA as well, Work Readiness Assessment, is a conference-like an assessment tool that will be coming up in the future. As a matter of fact, I'd like to tell you that we have enjoyed the endorsement of and partnership of various institutions, including HR Certification Institute, and we are Value Builder certified. I thought that's a great one, actually. So some of our values and solutions we provide to the society at large and business organizations are HR solutions, career solutions, business solutions, entrepreneurship solutions, talent management solutions, and training programs. If you're interested in knowing more and having more information about these programs, I would encourage you to go visit our website on p4pe.co. I'm going to be your host for this event. My name is Joseph Omojua. I'm the talent business manager in P4P and an author. Our webinar topic today is designing and delivering a great virtual training session. Our session protocol is I will encourage and appreciate if everyone can actually turn off their video and their audio. If you may want to speak or if you may speak on a particular thing, I'll appreciate if you can actually be that the facilitator is inviting you. If you have questions, comments, or concerns by any chance, please do not hesitate to put it in the comment section. Today, we have the honor of inviting Joel Omeke. He is a vibrant strategic HR practitioner and professional. He has unique in-depth in employee and organizational performance management, talent management, and corporate academy. He has over 70 years experience across the division and across all sectors. He has 15 years experience in training and facilitation experience. He presently functions as the lead consultant in P4P Institute. We'd like to invite him on, and we'll actually be putting our hands together if we can, and appreciate to have him on here. Thank you very much, everyone.
Hello, good afternoon. If you can hear me, just respond by chatting yes in the chat box, so I know that we are together. Please just chat yes on the chat box. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you very much for the response. I'm just going to share my screen now. Then we can start the session properly. So let's do another test. If you can see my screen, so just say yes.
Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thanks all, wonderful. It's nice having you in this particular session. Like the host had said, my name is Joel Omike, and this is a rerun of a session we had last week. The conversation is around how can professionals design great virtual sessions that drive engagement, sessions that deliver results within the organization. How can we deliver virtual sessions in such a way that at the end of the day, those sessions will still feel like and look like we're running sessions that are live in class, as the case is. In our conversation today, what are we going to learn? What are we going to see? We are going to be examining how to deliver while after designing a virtual session, how to ensure that you're able to reach the audience and ensure that engagement happens throughout it. And then we're able to use some tools. We're going to share some tools that we can also use in this particular session. There are three parts to my conversation today. The first part is on an introduction to why virtual training today. What differentiates one virtual training from another virtual training? How do you design virtual trainings, e-learnings as the case may be? How do you deliver virtual training so that the feeling is the same thing down the line? I will start by a brief conversation on what is the difference really. What's the difference between a webinar and a virtual classroom or a virtual class, a virtual training? I will invite your comments. Please chat. What do you say? What will you say is the difference between a webinar and a virtual classroom? What differentiates a webinar and a virtual classroom? Feel free to chat if you have a comment to make on this. What differentiates a virtual room and a webinar? Please feel free to chat. And while you are at that, let me put a bit of context to why we've gone virtual in today's world. Some say it's because of the pandemic. That is why a lot of organizations are now doing virtual training. That's true. But before the pandemic came, a lot of organizations have discovered the use of online tools as a way to transfer knowledge and learning, especially where you have students, participants across multiple geographic locations, and it is not easy to bring them to one particular location. This has led to the development of tools in the past for virtual conversations. You remember platforms like WebEx from Cisco, right from time, has been available for this. And then there are also, you've had other platforms for chatting and conversations. Even Facebook has been used for those conversations, including WhatsApp video as the cases. Now, let me look at some of the comments we've gotten so far on the difference between a virtual session and a webinar. So Ekwase says that the major difference is that webinars are larger than virtual rooms. I agree with you. There's also that webinars are conferences and they are shorter in period. That also makes sense. Then it says that virtual sessions are smaller classes between 12 and 20. Beautiful. Rhoda also explained that virtual is not physical. Great. And can have physical interaction where physical is face-to-face. Thank you all for sharing and being a part of this quick survey at this point in time. So what really is the difference between the virtual and the physical class? One thing you know, a virtual class is a simulation of the real class, that students will have attended. In such environment, you use a web software, a software online to be able to do this, sometimes installed on your system. But the best of it is that you should immerse the students, communicate with them seamlessly, so that both the instructor and the instructed will feel as if they are in the same class at that point in time. This can include the use of presentation slides. You can use text, you can use chat, you can use webcam, you can use a whiteboard, and we're going to talk about some of these things as we make progress. This conversation is around the instruction design model that is called ADIE, the ADIE model. We're using that for this illustration. And you know, in the ADIE model, it talks about analysis, design, development, implementation. This conversation is about design and implementation of this particular model. How do you design a program in such a way that that program, at the end of the day, addresses the competency gap, the knowledge gap, the skill gap of employees or the target audience that are attending that particular program? Two, how do you implement it in such a way that at the end of the program, employees feel engaged, they feel excited, and they can go back to work and transfer some of the things that has been said? These are the things we shall be discussing at this point in time. The second part of our conversation, that's the end of my introduction. The second part of my conversation now says, how do you design virtual programs in such a way that they are great sessions at the end of the day? What really is a design? A design usually is a guide of what you've put in place on how the final prototype of how the final product will look like, will feel like, will be like at the end of the day when it is implemented. Your instructional design is such that even if you're running a virtual class, the students should feel less of it being as if it's a virtual class. It should be as seamless as possible. It should be as practical as possible. Now, I'm talking about these virtual classes. When you're designing a virtual class, what are the procedures you go through to ensure that the design of the class is successful, so that you are able to get the attention of the participants, so that you can get the kind of results they expect to get from it? For one thing, just lifting your slide from a normal class and putting it online in presence of students and running slide by slide is not a virtual class. You can also have sent the slide to them and asked them to read it by themselves. Since they are there online, you must engage them. It's not about showing them slides and reading the slides to them at that point in time. You must run them through in such a way that they feel excited about it. Now, what is the step for designing a virtual class? The first step when you're designing a virtual class is you must have the end in mind. That is to say, what do you want to achieve? What is the goal of the program? What's the goal of that particular training you're going to run? Think about the purpose of the program. That purpose will help you to guide your design. What do you want participants to feel at the end of the program? What do you want them to think at the end of the program? What knowledge do you want them to walk away with at the end of the program? If you have that in mind, you can start your design process. Then everything you design will be in alignment to achieving that particular goal and that objective at that point in time. Once you're clear of destination, the next thing to think about is content. What are the key messages that you want the participants to take away? What skills do you want them to use? What models do you want to include in the presentation? You brainstorm the content. What is the various content? If possible, use a mind map. Write down and draw out everything you want to be included in that particular presentation so that the participants can get real value from your program. Brainstorming sometimes does not end once. You can brainstorm and put some things together and carry on with your design and development. But down the line, when you remember a few things, you come and add it to the schedule of what you're building at that point in time. The third thing in your step-by-step process is to decide what will be included. What content will you include? What learning process will you put inside it? All right, what will be added to it? Please do not overload the content. The attention span of students in class is limited, much less of online. When we are online, there's a lot of distractions. So you must explore clearly what you're going to put in the program in order to engage participants, to ensure that you have some pre-work, pre-class assignments before they come to class, some reference materials they can read at the end of the class also. That way you ensure that you have sufficient material and content for the participants at that point in time. The attention span of the average person in class is like 2 minutes. So at the end of every 2 months, you should be able to engage that particular individual. If not so, he quickly goes to his phone or to another device and gets distracted at that point in time. Then bring all the material together on a canvas and begin to bring it together. The demos, the stories, the examples, the questions you want to use, the imagery, the sequencing. Check everything and ensure that they are working very well. Decide what needs to stay and what needs to go away from it. Then create your introduction last. One of the things you must consider how to kick off the class is the content. Remember, if you start well, participants would always stay with you. They will be engaged with you throughout the end of that particular session as you make progress in it. Then you can then begin to put the slides one by one and arrange them together. Use a slide deck and put your slides together. Then when you finish, just don't worry about the order. Drop the slides, put the materials in order. When you're done putting it in order, you can then be bringing them together one by one. Okay, this one should be number one. This one should be the third one. This one should come after this one. Then you arrange those things. Then your design is ready. When you're then ready with your design, you can then go to class and engage students very clearly. Let me engage in on our conversation. Of the 6 steps we have mentioned so far, which one do you find difficult to work with? Which ones do you find that you notice that sometimes when you design your online classes, you may skip it, you may not do it? In my conversation, I have covered the first one we said is that you should begin with the end in mind. The second one we said is brainstorm your content. The third one we've also said is that you should decide what material, what content you're going to put in place. The fourth one is to put them together into decks of slides and decide in which sequence they will go. The fifth one we said is now to create your introduction. And then the sixth one is to arrange the slides in such a way that they will be presented. Which of these is most challenging for you? Feel free to chat about it and I'll respond to you immediately. Thanks. So we have the first response. The first response says that the trouble is content, that sometimes you have problem with content. All right. Gathering content, right? Beautiful. Kale Jaya said slide 6, the 6th one, which is creating the slides and the material. Okay. And then Kubemi says, I find 3, decide on your gigs, difficult. Thanks for responding. Let me respond very quickly. On creating the slides, sometimes if you're not good with designs of slides, you may recruit your colleague in the office or someone who is very good with designs to ensure that it gives you a beautiful design you can work with. Remember that visual appeal, what students see, can attract their attention more than when they have just text in the screen at that point in time. Then on deciding on the gigs, on the content, you must choose your content carefully. That is why it is important to gather a lot of content. I wish I could show you my slide now. In my slides, when I prepared the slide I'm presenting to you is just 20, 30 slides. But the deck of slides I have is about 90 slides. So at the bottom of my presentation, there's a place, a section where I call pack. I've packed other slides that I wanted to use initially. But as I am arranging the slides, I made up my mind that this will fit, this will not fit. So whenever you find content, keep putting them at the bottom there and bring the ones you want to use at the top. That way you have a potpourri of materials that you can use consistently in your presentation. Okay, thanks. So let's make progress. Let's make progress and then go into the next conversation that now says, what are the methods? What are the techniques for virtual training, for virtual classrooms? Well, there are various methods you can use to ensure that your virtual class is successful. For me, number one is visual. Let it be exciting. Let there be diagrams and pictures. Students always feel more connected with the content if they can associate it with some diagram, with some visuals, including video, as the case may be. Two, depending on the length of the material that you have, ensure that you also use video. Ensure that you also use polls. If you have a very long time, use polls. Polls refer to quick quiz and questions that you ask. Most of the e-learning platforms have those things in place, and you can use those in your pollings, all right? If you are doing a virtual training, you can use polls. If you're using a webinar, you may not have enough time to gather all the polls information. Just make sure that your poll should not last more than 3 minutes, maximum 5 minutes. And if you're doing a 1 hour session and you spend 5 minutes on polling, what time will you have to debrief the content? So be careful on your use of polling. Then use group discussions and breakout sessions. All right. Zoom, as an example, has a feature that is called breakout room. And other ones also have similar rooms that you can use. Break your participants into several groups, into different groups, and push them to those particular rooms. And it's easy to do. All right. I'm going to just quickly show you the breakout room at this point in time. I don't know if you see this screen, but let me put it on the second screen if you can see it. So I'm going to create 2 rooms. So I just created 2 rooms, and I'm going to assign people automatically to those rooms. About 7 or 8 of us to each room at the same time. I've created the rooms, and people have been assigned to those rooms. At this point in time, you will have received a notification inviting you to join a room. You will receive a notification that tells you join a room now, all right? And I'm going to send the invitation. I've sent it. So if you check your screen, you will receive a notification that says join a room. Once you click accept, you will instantly move to that particular room, and then you can operate from that particular room. Now, as the presenter here, I can see those of us who are joining the rooms. So already a lot of us have joined the room. Room 1, about 4 people have joined the room, 5 persons now. And room 2, 3 other persons have joined the room. You see, the beauty of these rooms is that it allows you to continue to have a conversation. I'm going to close the rooms and bring us back again to this place. So all the rooms will be closed in 1 minute, and then you can join back here again. So I'll just wait for you to come back again in this session, and then we can continue.
I need to know how to break out, sir, while other people come in.
It will close automatically. It will bring you out automatically. Once I have closed the room, it will close you out automatically. And the room has been closed. So everybody should be back here at this point in time. So thank you very much for participating in that exercise. So if we had allowed the room to run for, say, 20, 30 minutes, you can ask the people in that room to do a case study or an assignment or a quiz that you've given to them. They can brainstorm and then come back to you within the major room again at the end of the day. And then you continue to have your conversation. This is very useful in your virtual classes, so you can have more engagement with various people in the classroom. Okay, Egbe, I just showed how to create those rooms in the slide that I did. Okay, no, I see more questions around creating rooms. Permit me to come back to these questions at the end of the slide. Okay, I'll come back to how I created the virtual rooms on Zoom. Now, how many people can attend the live virtual sessions? I'm going to walk through this very, very quickly. And I like the response when we started initially. 20 attendees or less is ideal for your virtual class. Once you have more than 20 persons in a virtual class, it is difficult for the facilitator to reach everybody. Some students will be lost and will not be able to cover and reach them as much as possible. Your optimal size is to have between 12 to 25 persons in your virtual class. Note that the best number is 12. If it is 12 in a 1 to 2 hour session, the facilitator can spend 1-2 minutes randomly across with everybody and have meaningful discussions. If people are more than this, it will be difficult for you to apply your conversation to everybody in that team. It may end up being a broad conversation that you have at that point in time. How do I turn on the TV? Now, the other one is on your virtual course roadmap. I hope you can still see my slide. The virtual course roadmap speaks to how you can execute as much as possible from beginning till the end. If it is an e-learning course that you're developing, the first, like I said, you plan and analyze and identify the content you want to use and how you're going to use that content. Then you curate that content, map the content across, create a storyboard, all right? How will the conversations go in it at that point in time, all right? And then there's also the visual team, the prototype, then the graphic design, all right, that you're supposed to have at that point in time to ensure that you deliver more results. Then you eventually design the quiz and assignments and put them in the various sections that you want the presentation to be when you begin to have that particular conversation at that point. Okay, so one more case study of what you can do. This is an example of your learning objective. So the overall course goal is clear in that particular place. Then there's a learning objective, and then the sub-modules that you're going to have. You can break it down in this particular area. So you can end up having small sections. Like you notice in my presentation, I have a slide that shows you 3 different areas that covers my learning objective. And very soon I'll be showing that slide again as I move to the next learning objective. I will remind you when I get to that particular place. Now here is the case study of a particular virtual class that we ran some time ago on a particular organization that has branches in more than 1 country. They were actually located in 3 countries. And they have staff who speak different languages, who were required to run the presentation in the different languages. One was English, which I took. The other one is a French language, which another facilitator took. And then there was Portuguese. We had another person who took that particular course. But it was the same material that we used, the same length of presentation. So at the content, the graphics and all the things that were used were exactly the same. And there were about 100 minutes that was spent going through that particular presentation. And at the end of the program, they rated the program 9.1 out of 10 to show that they were excited about that particular program. And what was the program about? Time management. Because it was a legal firm that was, they are responsible for responding to the legal inquiries of organizations across various areas. But they noticed that their employees were not able to meet the demands of clients regularly. And they traced it down to the point that there was poor time management. Okay, so thanks. So that's the way we handle that at that point in time, okay? Now, back again to, remember I said that you must have a slide that shows you your agenda. And it's easy for people to follow that particular agenda. Sometimes it is not important that you must fill your slide with a lot of text in order to describe your agenda, what you're covering. Like you notice in this particular slide, very clearly in it, we have detailed exactly what the agenda of the program is, the topic of the program. I am covering 3 areas. There's the introduction to the course, There is design, which is what we just covered, how to design a virtual training session. My next conversation now is on delivering a virtual session as much as possible. So let's look at how to deliver a virtual session that engages participants and gets them to feel excited. Now, when it comes to delivery, this is where the rubber meets the road. And sometimes this is where we may lose our audience and participants from time to time. What do you need to do when it comes to virtual delivery? Don't allow technology to rule you. Technology can affect your experience. Like last week when we had this particular session, technology was a serious concern. So you also have to be resourceful and train your staff and your co-hosts on how they can manage the program, so that while you're focused on delivering, they can manage the conversations, people joining and leaving the session. It is not always good as a facilitator to be the one admitting people into the program, because it will distract you from time to time. Also teach your co-facilitators. If you're facilitating with other people or you're running multiple classes and you have other facilitators also taking it, run them through the technological platform. If possible, do a demo session before the live session so that they get used to everything. Some 15 minutes demo session, 30 minutes demo session, a few hours before the program, preferably a day before the program, so that they get used to the platform before then. It makes a great way. Then don't lose sight of the goal when you're running a virtual session. Students may ask questions, and sometimes the conversations may trigger in a direction that is outside what you plan to discuss. Learn to use the parking lot. Tell them that anybody that has something that has said that is outside what is being discussed, tell them you will come back to it. Or tell them to just type it in the question box, that you will respond to it later. But please, if you promise to respond, always respond. If you cannot respond, arrange for another session or send additional material to the candidates or to the participant so that they can benefit from the insight that they are asking for at that point in time. We've spoken about using visual elements. You can use visual elements like diagram, charts, and live sessions to be able to display and engage your participants. Now let's look at how to engage your participants. How do you engage them to ensure that they are able to feel excited, work with you to produce the results that you expect for you to produce? Now, in engaging candidates, there are different things you can do. Let me look at the first one. First thing to do when you're engaging your audience is to set the tone. What does setting the tone mean? You must welcome the attendees as they are joining. As they are joining, as people's name and entries, Joel, welcome. Janet, welcome. How is your day going? That conversation forces them to feel among immediately. Not that they join the session and then they go about doing other things because they don't know whether the session is starting or something like that. You can use an icebreaker. I'm going to show you an example of an icebreaker very soon. That can ask questions and ask attendees to send in their answers in the chat box. Remember when I started the session, I requested for you to chat twice at the beginning. The first one I said was whether you're hearing me, you're seeing my slide, please chat yes. And it was easy, people chatted. Instantly, audience were engaged, they got involved. Second, I put a topic up and said, what is the difference between this and this? Can I get some response? And people started conversing on it. That is an easy way at the beginning to set the tone of your conversation. Then call out some of the answers. When people begin to respond, call out the answers that has been said. So that people know that, yes, the facilitator recognized what I have said. It's like a normal class. When you say people, when you request for people to respond and somebody raises his hand and says something, you must say something. The least you can say is thank you very much for your response. Don't just say next person. Show the person that you recognize what the person has said at that point in time. Then enable question and answer. You can use your host to capture all the answers and the questions that are coming in so that you are not distracted. Encourage attendees to ask questions throughout the session, because the more questions they ask, the more involved they are with the conversation at that point in time. It gives you a chance to collect questions as you go and then decide whether to answer that question live or answer the question at the end of the session. So there is nothing worse than dead air. When you finish a session and ask people, is there any question, and nobody says anything? It can be an uncomfortable point in time. So it's best to get them to ask all the questions in the middle of the conversation, and then you can answer any of the questions. As a rule, you don't need to ask again if there is any question at the end of the session. Then participants on their own can be self-driven and ask any questions that they want. The third one, when you're engaging participants, is to use poll, like I said earlier. Create 3 to 4 polls in your virtual session and periodically introduce those polls. And like I said, make sure that the poll, from your introduction to participants responding to it and you discussing the poll, should not take more than 5 to 10 minutes. So you can focus on your discussion as much as possible, except if the poll is the main conversation itself. Set enough time to discuss the outcome. This is a great way to gauge what your participants already know in the conversation, and then their level of expertise and their level of excitement also with the conversation at that point. Another thing you can do in order to engage your audience is to ask for feedback. At the end of the program, ask for feedback. How did the session go? Did you like the content? Did you like the presenter? Was the audience satisfied at that point in time? Will you recommend this program to another person? That feedback is useful to you so you can improve your next session when you have it. Now, if you're doing Zoom, Zoom can automatically pop up a survey form for people to fill at the end of the session if you have programmed the form. And you can program your survey form either using SurveyMonkey, Google Form, Microsoft Form, any of those online. You can use that. And then all you need to do is just put the link here, and then students and your participants can respond to it effectively. Finally, reactions. Participants can react during a meeting by sending thumbs up. They can clap their hand. They can say great. So there's a tool. If you go to more on your platform, you can see a tool there that shows reactions. Then you can use it to share conversations and share reactions by participants. If you don't find it, just click on participant's name, participants, and then that tool will appear. You can then use it to respond as much as possible. Always encourage reactions. If possible, at the beginning of the session, show participants how to use the reaction buttons so you can drive engagement throughout your conversation. So there you have it. Now, if you're running a virtual session that requires the participants to have their video on, periodically you can call for such reactions. Here is a session I did recently with some candidates and some people in a particular organization, and I had this particular people. So we requested when we're going that let's take a picture to show that we all showed up, and ask everybody to turn on his video and raise his hand and say hi or goodbye. And we're able to capture a screenshot, and all the students got a copy of this screenshot. It reminded them of the session they attended, that they were live in that particular session. So those are some of the engagements and reactions you can also create in your live virtual sessions. Another way to drive engagement is to use questions. So present a set of questions and ask them to choose. Once you present those set of questions, they can choose from it, and then it can drive a conversation, a discussion can start. And you can present this slide by slide. It will appear one by one. Question 1, you give them the options. They respond to it. You discuss it. You go to the second question up until you get to the last one. What are you doing? You're boosting learning. You're creating a place so that where students can respond immediately and feel excited about the message that is going on at that point in time. Do not run a session for a long time without stopping and asking students how will they apply what has been taught to them. I always recommend, if you're doing a 1-hour session, after every 30 minutes, stop and ask students, where do they see the application of this? If you're doing a 3-hour session, stop at the end of every 1 hour and give students 2 minutes to respond. How are they going to apply this particular session? Here is an example. In this particular slide, the question says, take 2 minutes to reflect on how you can use the strategies that has been discussed here to enhance what you're doing in your session. And they've given them 4 options in their presentation, all right? Here is another way to drive application and engagement, and this is used at the beginning of a particular session. It's used at the beginning of a particular session. Take, for example, this particular session that we're having now. I could have used this slide at the beginning where I asked, welcome to this particular session. While we are waiting for others to join us, please connect your audio and video. This way you can help the participants to test whether they are ready for the session. Second, close out all your email and other notifications, because sometimes on your phone, sometimes on your laptop that you're using, there may be notifications that will be disturbing the session at that point in time. Then get ready to actively participate. This is more like you running through what is your, what will I call it now? Your instruction, your recommendations for the students while the class is going on. Then at the bottom part, I added a fun part. It says, tell us in the chat box, where would you most like to spend your vacation and why? And I put a picture of me and my colleagues in a particular fun time that we went out to as a team, as an organization, just to spice their mind to be able to respond how they are going to do this at this point. Instantly, this will generate conversation. And people will begin to chat, I would like to go to Bahamas, I'd like to go to California, and all those, I'd like to go to Dubai. Those conversations will drive fun and laughter just before the session starts. And instantly, the ice is broken. And we are all good and great going into the session at that point in time. Another thing you can do is to use the activities. You can generate an activity, and here is an example of an activity, group work. Okay, you can ask them to discuss among themselves. Usually when I use this slide in a presentation, I usually show only the car. Yes, so I show only the car, group work, and I ask the students, what do you know about these sports? And then students can respond, it's Formula One, is a high-speed sport, and things like that. And then you begin to ask questions around it. You ask, how does this team work? How do they deliver results and stuff like that? And then I then ask the primary question that is the group work. What are some of the characteristics of an effective team? Point in time. I need to show you how to deliver that particular result. Then they will engage in a conversation. Either they unmute themselves or they chat. You can have a beautiful conversation around this area. Another way to engage your students is by reflection. You can tell them to take 2 minutes and reflect on what has been taught. They can jot down what they have learned from that particular session at that point. How do you ensure students reflect on what has been said? You can time them. For example, this slide is timed 2 minutes. And as the timer starts, you can see up here that this up part is gradually turning blue. And it will change this entire space from white to blue. That shows that the time is over. At the same time here also in the slide, you will notice that it is also turning gradually. This wheel here is counting down towards the 2 minutes. That helps you to do a self-check. So you go mute, you go quiet, and allow the students to reflect. At the end of the reflection, you can ask 1 or 2 of them to share what is their reflection, what did they observe, what did they notice, what do they intend doing going forward. And this way, it drives engagement and everybody gets involved with that session at that point in time. Okay, so that's exactly how this is done, and then you can achieve it very well. Another part is the use of whiteboard. Now, whiteboard is annotation, and I'm going to show you an example of annotation. So just at the top of your screen, most probably you see an annotation. If you can see it, that's fine. If you can't see it, not a problem. So I'm just going to draw something on the screen. Oh, sorry. So if you do annotation, you can use that to demonstrate to students what you're talking about. You can be drawing on the screen. You can even invite them to draw along with you also at that point in time. Then when the session is over, invite an action plan. How are we going to use what we have learned today? Tell students to write down 3 goals at the end of this session, what they are going to do about it. You ask them, what are the action plan? What are the specific steps you're going to take to achieve this? By when? It forces every student to pay attention, to get involved, and to deliver results from it. This is bringing me to the end of my conversation. But one more thing before we go away. One more thing you need to learn and understand in the world of our digital and virtual classrooms. A lot of things are changing. The classroom today is getting very, very exciting. there are more things that we're beginning to see in our environment that demands us to change the way we make presentations. I'm going to share with you a virtual class. This is the future virtual class, where the facilitator actually sees all the students live. And this is from a particular university. And this is the way they present their classroom. So every student is live. He has his own screen. One screen, the facilitator sees everybody, everybody sees everybody. And we're able to have a live conversation at that point in time. I'm going to see if I can play you a quick video. Let me see if I can play you a quick video that shows how this works in a particular institution. Can you hear my audio?
Yes.
Oh, beautiful. So let me continue.
Is one of the leading business schools in the world. We provide experiences that are both degree and non-degree or executive education. It's still pretty challenging to get 60, 80 people into an environment where they can all hear and see each other seamlessly, where they can share content and co-create content, where they can interact with different tools. So the virtual classroom allows us essentially to conduct the same methodology, which is a rich discussion of a particular scenario, a case, in a virtual context, a context where people are at their home, the faculty is here on campus and are able to engage in this debate.
We realized that trying to reproduce the experience in the physical classroom with remote participants was one thing, but we could go far beyond, because digitalizing the learning experience allowed you to go for additional features. For example, you could track or you could measure things that in a physical classroom typically are difficult to track or to measure. The time that the person is speaking or participating, the number of times that he raised his hand, the results of all votes, and use all that material to enhance the experience for the professor and of course for the participant.
We're actually on the way to come fairly close to the experience that we're used to and we kind of value so much in the physical classroom and face-to-face environment. In fact, it's easier to see faces, it's easier to see names, it's easier to see when someone raises a hand, it's easier to keep track who has spoken, who hasn't spoken. And so it's a combination. You rely on the things that you do in the physical classroom, and most of them still work and work pretty well. But on top of this, you have another tool set, the polls, some of the other things that you can complement or that you can add to the traditional techniques.
So that's an example of a future classroom in which virtually all the students are there, and then the facilitator can still use his board, make presentation, make interactive conversation, draw diagrams, illustrate things, and invite candidates to get involved in that particular conversation. Also, we're getting to a point where we're going to have a hybrid class. Some people will be virtual while some are live in that particular class. And you still run the session in such a way that there's engagement for both those who are on ground and those who are joining the class physically, just to ensure that despite the fact that we're going through this pandemic period, you can still deliver the same level of engagement and results that you would like to have, both from the virtual class and also from the physical class. Another example from this particular video is what we find at Harvard, where they have what they call LiveX, that allows the facilitator, the professor, to engage with students across multiple countries and be able to deliver the kind of results that they expect everybody to benefit from at the same time. Now, wrapping up our conversation now, what are the things we are taking away from this particular session? There are three things. One, you must prepare for your virtual class. Be very, very prepared, design very well, and then prepare all the engagement sessions that you need. Secondly, be tech savvy. Don't be afraid of technology. Learn and love to use the technical tools that you find on your online sessions and use it fantastically so you can deliver good results. Then engagement is king. Any session without engagement is a dead session. Learn to get your audience so I can deliver the kind of results and then don't forget to say thank you to your participants at the end of the session for being with you throughout the session and having shared your thoughts with them as much as possible. And this is me saying thank you to you also for being with me on this particular session. But note, what I have said so far is useless to me and you until you apply it, until you put it into action. So knowledge acquired is only exciting when you're able to put it into practice and then use it effectively to deliver results. Thank you very much for this particular session. Nice talking to you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Joel Mayke. That was an explosive section and very, very educative. We would like to agree that we'll back a take home on some of the things which we are actually not aware of using these tools, and I appreciate that, and I understand that everyone here as well, we appreciate all the effort. So now, do you have any questions for the Mr. Joel, for our guest? If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to put it in the comment section. So someone has asked a question to the guest. How did you create the breakout rooms? Could you hear me? How did you create the breakout rooms?
Okay, thank you very much. On the breakout rooms, first, your account, your Zoom account must be a paid account. That is how you're going to find that available for you. And secondly, it must be meeting. It must be a meeting that you have set up. So in the middle of the session, once you click on that particular button at the top that says more, one of the options says is breakout room. One of the options there is breakout rooms. And then what you need to do is now select how many rooms do you want to break out to. You will see a menu that appears with the breakout room. It will ask you to choose how many rooms that you want to break out to. And then it will request for you to select the number of rooms. Do you want the participants to be shared into those rooms automatically? Or do you want to do the sharing yourself manually? Or do you want the participants to choose which room they will enter at that point in time? So once you choose all that options, you can then request for a recalibration. When I did it initially, I broke the room into 3. If now I break the room into 4, there are about 17 of us who are online. If I break the room into 4, it will instantly recreate the room and allocate people automatically, like 5 or 4 in each of those rooms. Then you can then click on a button that says open room. Once you click on that open room, everybody is ready to go and they can join the session. At the end of the session, just close the room. There's a button also when you start the room that says close room. Once you close the room, it sends a message to everybody that the room will close in 50 seconds or in 1 minute. And then once that 1 minute is over, everybody is brought back to the live session at the end of the day. So you can use that at that point in time. Okay, there's an interesting question from Boma. She says, after applying all that has been said, and you discover that the participants refuse to be engaged, how do you deal with this? Well, sometimes you can't force engagement. Some students perhaps must have are having a bad day or woke up from the wrong side of their bed or something like that. So you may not be able to engage all students at the same time. However, out of every set of students, you can engage by one-on-one. If the general conversation we've said did not work, call students one by one. Look at the names in your schedule and say, Joel, thank you for joining us today. What is your view about this? The only thing Joel can say is, I don't have any view. And that's engagement on his own because he has already responded and spoken at that point in time. Okay?
Wonderful. Do we have any questions for our guest, please? We we're having 1 more minute for questions. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to pass it across over the message. Slow. Okay, so in the absence of no questions, I have a question pertaining to the 6 steps to creating a wonderful slide or presentation. And I think for me personally, the one I found so challenging is linking it all together. So now when you're creating your slides, having the end in mind, and after you brainstorm the content and decide on your gigs, and when you get to that linking stage, what idea, what strategy do you employ?
Once you get to the end of your slide design, at the point in time when you're designing slide, remember I said that you can have several more slides. So what you do is just keep collecting the slides that you need. Any content you see, just create a slide for it. Then when it's time to rearrange your slides, you can put it together in order and then choose the ones you want to use. Your PowerPoint has the provision for you to hide slides. So anyone you're not using, you can hide that particular slide at that point in time. Then when you're in a live session and you notice that you need it, you can go and unhide it and include it in your conversation at that point in time. So that is what you can do also.
Thank you very much. One more question for you. Do you think the future of education is virtual?
Yes and no. We will not take away physical contact in trainings, no matter what we do. As much as possible, there's nothing like physical. However, virtual is going to gain a lot of ground because a lot of people are doing virtual work today, and a lot of businesses are also going virtual. The best way to engage, to drive learning, to build conversations is to go virtual. Even business meetings today, there is now less travel, global travels around, not because of pandemic, but because whatever it is that is taking you to travel on a business-wise, you can have that conversation over Skype, over WhatsApp, over any platform you need to have meetings on. All right?
Oh, wow. Thank you very, very much for everything, for all the education. I really appreciate. To all our participants, I just want to encourage you to register now for the next section, which I believe is very, very comprehensive and it's an advanced section. You will be going through a stage where you learn a lot of things that you can actually incorporate in your slides and your presentation skills. A lot of things are embedded in that next session, and I can assure you that if you are attending that session, you will elevate your presentation skills. If you'd like to register, I'll be dropping the link in the message box. And for one thing, I'd like to tell you, if you're attending, for the mere fact that you're attending today's event, you are gaining 20% discount on the next event. So if you're also coming in groups, you are actually having the opportunity to enjoy 20% discount on the registration. The price is 105,000 naira, but I can assure you one thing, that you're going on with a lot of knowledge, skills, and experience. I'll be dropping the link right now in the message box, and I hope and I believe that every one of us have enjoyed the time. Thank you very much, and please do have a great day. I'll be sending a survey across to you. Please, if you have the time, kindly fill the form. Thank you. So yes, so please fill the form and register for the virtual session, the next session. Do not hesitate to fill it right now if you can, please. Thank you. I hope you find the registration process very easy. We have made it such that you can easily register, and I hope that you have a very good process. Thank you very, very much for the time. We hope to see you in the next event, and we hope to creating a brighter future together. Thank you.